Today, I will be talking about tuning your guitar down a half step, so stick around. Hey everybody, it is Aaron at Warmouth, and yes, today I am talking about standard tuning versus tuning your guitar down a half step. And I am going to use the term A flat a lot because that's just kind of how I grew up referring to it. A guitar that is tuned to standard tuning is tuned to A, or A440, and a guitar that's tuned down a half step is tuned to A flat. And I don't know why I picked that up. It must be because of the whole A440 thing. But that's how I refer to it. I'll try and refer to it as standard tuning and a half step down, but I know I'm going to slip up. So anyway, yeah, this guitar is currently tuned to standard tuning, but I use it a lot in one of my bands. Maybe you can tell which by the other guitar that's in the shot. And in that band, we play a half step down. So I'm going to be tuning this guitar down a half step to use for some gigs I have coming up. And I'm going to play a couple of clips with the way it is now in standard tuning, and then I will play the same clips tuned down a half step so you can hear the difference. And it's not really a tone shootout. It's just to hear the difference between standard tuning and tuning down a half step. And I can tell you from my personal experience, guitarists have long said, well, I tune down a half step to help the singer out. Like it's being, like we're being so thoughtful. But I don't really think that's the reason. It is part of the reason. I sing in my bands. I sing harmony a lot, which is often higher than the main vocal line. And it does help me to have that little break. It's not much, but over the course of a show, it can help a little bit. But the main reason I think that guitar players started to tune down is because it sounds really cool and it makes it easier to play. The strings are a little slinkier. And it's just got a different sound, more than just the half step down in pitch. It's got a different sound that's just like kind of hot rodded, or I guess you could say, or a little meaner. Your bends and your vibrato sound a little bit more wild. The tuning has, the tone has a little bit more girth to it. And I think it's kind of a baby step into tuning down before 7-string guitars came along and got really popular, or baritone guitars got really popular, although they've been popular for a long time. So maybe not, but I think guitar players like to tune down. There's a little more authority in your tone. That said, some things sound better tuned down and some sound better in standard. Standard has this kind of like brighter sound. And, I've played in lots of bands over my career, and some we tune to A, some we tune to A flat. There you go, I did it. Some we tune to standard tuning, some we tune down a half step. Some we play a mix of both. So, in my early days, I played in a lot of just cover bands, and we would play a mix of both. And there was always argument within the band, like, do we bring a bunch of guitars? Do we make the keyboard player constantly have to tweak his keyboard to follow along with the right tuning? And it's funny because some songs from guitar players or bands that typically tune down a half step, like, Van Halen or Guns N' Roses or, Hendrix, they sound right when you perform them a half step down. When you perform them in standard tuning, they don't sound right. Conversely, songs that are done in standard tuning, like, Don't Stop Believin', or Living on a Prayer, and you perform them a half step down and they don't quite sound right. They don't have that bright sound. A lot of bands do both. Like if you go to learn AC/DC songs, you'll find that they're tuning all over the place. Back in Black's in standard tuning. Other albums, if I remember correctly, Highway to Hell is half step down. Or maybe some of the songs on Highway to Hell are half step down and others are standard. And I think some are kind of in between. So, you know, you just kind of have to decide what's best for you. When I'm playing by myself, I always like to tune a half step down. It's just easier to play. I really prefer a half step down just for that wilder sound. But, you know, I play all the time in standard tuning as well. I keep a mix of guitars around for both. But anyway, that's kind of my take on standard tuning versus half step down. Now I'm going to show you, take you through, well, first I'm going to play a couple of clips in standard tuning. Then I'm going to show you how to tune down a half step using a tremolo bar. You know, if you have a standard guitar, you just tune it down. If you have a tremolo, you got to pay a little more attention to what you're doing. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Then I'll play the same clips again, tune down a half step, and then of course I'll edit them so that they're all back to back. And that's it. We'll see how it goes. Because this one is a Floyd Rose tremolo, the first thing I need to do is loosen the nut. So let's, I don't even need to take these off. I'll just loosen them up so that the strings can be tuned by the tuning pegs instead of the fine tuners. And then before you start tuning, you need a basic understanding of how a tremolo bridge works. And this is true of a Floyd Rose tremolo or any of the various Strat style tremolos, whether it's the vintage 6-screw or any of all the different kinds of 2-post tremolos. Basically, the tremolo is a fulcrum, and the pivot points are the posts. In this case, 2 posts. If you have a more traditional bridge, it might be 6 posts, or 2 posts if you have like one of the Godot 510 styles, or a PRS tremolo has 6 screws across it. Basically, that is the fulcrum point that this tremolo goes back and forth on, and it has 2 counteracting forces. One is the tension of the strings across the top, and the other is the tension of the strings on the bottom. So what that means is the bridge is pivoting on this point, and if you increase the tension on this side by tightening the strings, by tuning them up, it's going to change the balance point, and the tremolo bridge is going to pull that way. If on the other hand, if you were to take a screwdriver and tighten up these springs, you know, just tighten them up so that the springs are pulling harder, then that increased tension on the back of the guitar is going to make the bridge tilt backwards. And so what you have to do is tune it down to the tuning that you want. As you tune it down, the bridge is going to fall backwards, and then you have to loosen up on the springs so that it returns back to the 0 point. And the 0 point will vary depending on the kind of bridge you have. On a Floyd Rose, you want the plate of the bridge to be parallel with the surface of the top of the guitar. On various Strat style trems, you want it to be you want the back end of the tremolo to be raised up just a little bit. So it kind of depends on what style of tremolo you have, exactly where the 0 point should be set. But the principle is the same. Loosen the strings, the springs are going to pull it backwards. You got to loosen the springs to get it to come back to the 0 point. So the procedure is tuned at a half step down. Your trem will fall back, loosen the screws, flip it back over, tune it back to a half step down again. That's going to pull the bridge back up to some point, and you're going to check to see if you're back at the 0 point. And if you're not, you just need to continue making adjustments to the strings and to the springs alternately, tuning in between each step until you've got that bridge back to the 0 point. Okay, so that's roughly back to tune a half step down. So now I will take a look, and it looks like I actually need to adjust it just a little bit more. Just loosen the screws up on the trem claw just a little bit more. Okay, flip it back over and retune it again. Okay, now I'll check the plate again. And that looks pretty good. The plate has come back to level with the plane of the base plate for the tremolo is back to being parallel with the plane of the top of the guitar. So I am where I need to be now. So I can go ahead and fine tune and get everything back to being play ready, and then I'll record some clips, tune down a half step. And that is it. That is standard tuning versus tuning down a half step. I hope that gave you some insight on why guitar players do it, how to do it on a tremolo equipped guitar, and whether it's something you want to consider for your own playing. And remember, if anybody asks you, we're doing it for the singer. If you have any more questions, make sure and check out the Warmth website or give our customer service reps a call. And until next time, keep on picking.